Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really complex and, honestly, pretty sensitive topic, the practice of shunning within the Jehovah's Witnesses. We're going to break down a report that takes a deep look at this policy, the official rules behind it, and the very real human impact it has.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Right off the bat, you see this massive contradiction. On the one hand, you have the public message, what they say on their website, which is all about personal freedom. Everyone can decide, right? But then you look at their internal rules and you get something totally different, something incredibly strict. And that disconnect, well, that's what we're really going to unpack here.
So, to really get a handle on what this policy feels like in practice, the source we're looking at uses a pretty powerful analogy. It says this isn't just about someone deciding not to talk to you. No, it's a systematic process that works a lot like social bullying. Let's take a look at how that mechanism is laid out.
What's so revealing here is seeing it broken down into these steps. It's not one single action. It starts with a direct target, but then it spreads. It pulls in your friends, gets them to give you the silent treatment. Then it goes even further, threatening anyone who doesn't go along with it. It even ropes in family members who don't live with you. And that final step, denying it's even happening and flipping it around to make you look like you're the one with the problem, that's what creates this feeling of complete helplessness.
And as you can imagine, the consequences of this are just devastating. The report talks about some really severe psychological fallout for the people who go through this. We're talking panic attacks, deep, severe depression. This isn't just about feeling lonely. It's an isolation so profound that it can have these major mental health effects. And to make this really concrete, let's look at one person's actual story.
The report introduces us to a man named Salvatore. His experience really takes all these ideas, the policy, the fallout, out of the abstract and just shows you the staggering human cost.
Just look at this number. 15. Salvatore takes 15 different medications every single day. And the source is clear. 12 of those are specifically for psychological conditions. That number alone paints such a stark picture of his reality before we even hear the details of his story.
So when you look at Salvatore's timeline, you see this absolutely tragic story unfold. He was once a really dedicated member, even serving as a missionary. But then, after having a nervous breakdown, his life just completely changed. At 32, he confessed to something the organization considers a major sin, and for that, he was formally cut off. The result today? He's considered 100% disabled and has been pushed to the absolute brink more than once.
And it's so important to understand that what happened to him wasn't just, a few friends deciding they were mad at him. Disassociation is the official name for this. It's a formal, top-down policy. It's literally announced to the entire congregation, instructing every single member to cut off all social contact.
And this is maybe the most heartbreaking part of his story. His fragile mental state wasn't a secret. He'd had a nervous breakdown. But that didn't matter. There was no exception made, no compassion shown. The rule was just the rule. The people he thought of as his friends, his entire community, were told to turn their backs on him, and they did. They left him utterly alone when he was at his most vulnerable.
So this all brings up a huge question, right? Were all these people just acting on their own, or were they following direct orders? Well, the report answers that by going straight to the source, the organization's own official publications.
And here's the proof in black and white. This is a direct quote from a 1952 issue of The Watchtower, which is their main magazine. And the language is so explicit. It's not just don't hang out with them, it's never say hello or goodbye. Think about that. Not even the most basic human acknowledgement is allowed. It's just we avoid them.
And in case you think, well, that was from the 50s, maybe things have changed. Nope. This quote is from a much more modern book they use, and it couldn't be more direct. It literally asks the question, is it really necessary to avoid him completely? The answer? One word, yes. There's absolutely no ambiguity there.
Okay, so if the rules are this clear and this strict, you have to start asking what bigger purpose this serves. This is more than just one man's story. According to the source, this policy is actually a powerful system of control, a way to enforce the rules that affects everyone in the group, not just the person being shunned. And while Salvatore's situation involved what they call a serious sin, the report makes it clear that you can be disassociated for a whole lot of other things. Things like accepting a blood transfusion, which is against the rules, or even just disagreeing with their teachings. But here's the real kicker. You can be shunned for simply associating with someone who has already been shunned.
This visual really spells out how that works. It's like a chain reaction. You've got the person who is dissociated, right? They're shunned by everyone. But then, look at the next person, the sympathetic friend who maybe feels bad and wants to keep in touch. Well, they get shunned for not shunning. The only way to be safe, to stay in the group, is to comply. It basically forces obedience through the fear of being next.
Now, you might hear a defense of this practice, sometimes from people who were shunned but later came back. They might say things like, the policy helped me, or I deserved it. But the source we're looking at offers a really critical take on that. It draws a parallel to the psychological phenomenon where victims of abuse sometimes end up defending their abuser or saying the abuse was for their own good.
So, after looking at all this, the public face versus the internal rules, the devastating human cost, the way it functions as a system of control, it leaves us with this really big, difficult question. On one side, it's defended as religious freedom. But on the other, critics and people who've lived through it say it causes severe psychological damage and violates fundamental human rights. So the question is, where do we draw the line?